Hey all, welcome to Unit 10, World War I. We are creeping towards the end of our curriculum, so only 4 more units to go. I know several of you have been very excited about getting to this unit, and so finally we are here. We're here at World War I. This is a very fast unit. We only cover it in about 3 or 4 days, and then you have your tests. So please make sure you're staying up with your videos, that you are taking your notes, and staying up on your summaries as well. Okay, so let's just jump right on into it. So as we get into the 20th century, European nations have been in a period of peace for about 30 years, and it was certainly not by accident. There had been attempts to outlaw war since the mid-1850s. There were hundreds of peace organizations that had formed, as well as peace congresses that met on a very regular basis from the mid-1850s all the way up through 1907. But despite all of this, Europe would be at war within a decade, and it would spread across the globe. So while there were these folks who wanted to were working hard for peace in Europe, there were darker forces at work as well. There were 4 main reasons that you need to remember that led into World War I. So let's remember it as an acronym, MAIN. Okay, those letters represent militarism, alliances, imperialism, and last but certainly not least, nationalism. Please make sure you know what these letters stand for. So let's start with militarism. Militarism is defined as the buildup of military strength to intimidate others. It's a policy of glorifying military power and always having an army ready to go to war, both manpower and weaponry. Now, citizens felt extremely patriotic when their country had a large and powerful army. An example that you need to know is that Germany and Great Britain had begun to have an arms race, so meaning that they were both industrialized nations and capable of mass producing weapons and military gear. It basically became a contest to see who could have the most and the better weapons first. Okay, alliances is another reason for World War I. Here's how you should define alliances: agreements between nations to quote unquote help in case of war. There were 2 specific groups of allies you need to know. There was the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. Okay, the Triple Alliance was put together by Otto von Bismarck of Germany in order to isolate France. So think way back to when we had our nationalism unit on. We were talking about Germany. That Otto von Bismarck, same guy, put together this alliance trying to keep France away from anybody that might help them. It was made up of the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Italy. Now, the Triple Entente formed when Great Britain was fearful of Germany and what was going on there. Great Britain was looking for some allies. And so the members of the Triple Entente were Great Britain, France, and Russia. The I in MAIN stands for imperialism. Now, you should really remember what imperialism is because we just completed an entire unit on it. But imperialism is defined as when a strong nation takes over a weak nation. For example, European countries were still competing for colonies at this point. Okay, yes, we are in the 1900s, and they were still competing for colonies. Okay, all right, on to nationalism. I know, you're thinking, Mrs. Roach, we've been talking about nationalism for 3 units now. Yeah, I know, but here's where it becomes a major player in the world. You know, nationalism is pride in one's country, okay? So add this to your definition. It is extreme pride in one's country and a desire to be an independent country with an independent government. So we're adding on to our definition of just being proud of your country, okay? So this is where nationalism starts to get a little hairy and complicated. For example, on the Balkan Peninsula, there were many countries that were still under the Austro-Hungarian Empire and were desperate to be independent countries. Here's another example. Do you remember when we talked about the Franco-Prussian War? And I told you that later on you'd hear about Alsace-Lorraine, so that area in like right there, right along that red border there. This is the territory that has gone back and forth between France and Germany. Well, guess what? France wants this territory back from Germany because truly they were French citizens and the Germans had come in and taken it over. All right, so this part of the world is just explosive right now. It is just waiting for something to set it off, okay? Specifically, the Balkan Peninsula was called a powder keg at the time. It was just waiting for something, a spark to set it off. There were many nationalist groups on the Balkan Peninsula that wanted independence from Austria-Hungary. Now, the spark that does set it off is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and that happened on June 28, 1914. Now, the Archduke and his wife, I believe her name was Sophia, they had been in Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia, and as they were leaving a reception at the town hall, a young 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip, he was a member of the Black Hand. Well, Princip was unhappy. He was an extreme nationalist, and he was unhappy with the way things were going. So he shot both the Archduke and his wife, Sophia, at point-blank range, killing them both. Now, there's a short video that I posted in the playlist for this unit about the assassination that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. It's only 8 minutes long, and you don't need to take any notes on it. I just want you to watch it and learn a little bit more about this guy. So what happens next? Well, alliances are called in. I love this political cartoon. It is such a perfect example, and I promise that you're going to see this one on your test. So, Austria-Hungary finally promised to punish Serbia for the death of Franz Ferdinand. By the way, it took 3 weeks for them to declare war. Honestly, really, because no one liked Franz Ferdinand. So they saw him as weak, and they didn't really like him too much. He was very backwards in his thinking about some things. So they kind of took their time waiting to see how things were going to play out before they actually declared war. Anyway, Austria-Hungary had promised to make Serbia pay, but they were afraid that Russia would support Serbia. Well, Austria-Hungary ends up turning to Germany for support and issued ultimatums to Serbia. Now, Serbia was given 4 ultimatums they had to meet. Now, if you aren't sure what an ultimatum is, it's like when your parents or guardians tell you that you have to limit yourself to 5 text messages a day, or they're going to take your phone away for a month. Okay, so neither of these things are something that you want, but one is a lesser evil of the other, right? So Serbia was given 4 ultimatums. First, they had to suppress or keep quiet all groups who were opposed to Austria-Hungary. They also had to fire all teachers and ban all books that did not support Austria-Hungary. And in the questions column of your notes, jot down why you think they fired teachers and banned books. Okay, quick homework check grade right here. Click pause and do that now. All right, welcome back. So the third ultimatum Serbia was given was that all government workers who spoke out against Austria-Hungary had to be fired. And finally, Serbia had to allow Austria-Hungarian officials to participate in Princip's trial. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had been in Serbia and I had been given those ultimatums, I wouldn't have been so happy. So what does Serbia do? Serbia refused. They absolutely refused to comply with the ultimatums. And so war begins. Okay, so here's basically a timeline in your notes, and you're going to notice that all of these events happen within the time span of 1 year, okay? Here's where things get a little crazy, kind of like a bar fight scene from a movie, okay? You already know that on July 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated. Serbia was given ultimatums, which they do not comply with, and a couple of days later, on August 1st, 1914, Germany declared war on Russia because Russia had begun to mobilize in order to help Serbia. Well, 2 days later, on August 3rd, Germany went ahead and declared war on France because Germany was so sure that France was going to come to help Russia and Serbia due to their alliance with Russia. Well, in order to get to France, on August 4th, Germany marched through Belgium, which is a neutral country. This is a big, big, big no-no. In times of war, neutral countries are to be left alone. So now, because Germany has marched through a neutral nation, Great Britain declared war on Germany because you just don't do that. You just don't march through a neutral country. Later on that month, in August of 1914, Japan joins Great Britain and France in the Triple Entente because Japan wants Germany's colonial possession in China and the Pacific Islands. Remember that tiny red area on the Southeast Asia map from our last unit? Yeah, Japan wanted it. They wanted that land. So remember that Japan is also becoming more imperialistic, and they're becoming a world power too. So fast forward to June 1915. Italy had stayed neutral for 10 months, but when they entered the war against, yes, I said against Germany and Austria-Hungary, it was because Italy saw Austria-Hungary as being the aggressors. Now, I know what you're thinking. you just look back in your notes, hopefully, to see if they were in alliance, if there was an alliance between Germany and Austria-Hungary. And yes, you're right, they were. Italy was in that alliance with them. However, Italy viewed the alliance as for defense purposes. So because Italy thought of Austria-Hungary as the aggressors, Italy did not feel obligated to help its alliances. So there you have it. Kind of a very quick timeline as to how we get into this war and what were the things that were leading up to it. Please be sure that you rewind and rewatch any sections that you may have zoned out in. You're going to have a video check next class. Don't forget also you'll have a vocab quiz next class as well. I'll see you then.